Frank. What's the weirdest thing you've ever saw in here?
Let me ask you a question, kid. Did you see that movie, Night of the Living Dead?
Hey, we gonna party tonight or what?
Yeah, we are gonna party.
Well, where are we gonna party?
I don't know, somewhere.
Hey, we could go to the park.
Oh, no, we can't. The cops said they'd shoot us if we go back to the park.
Yeah, and I ain't in no mood to die tonight.
I like death.
Greetings, ghouls, and welcome to minute 24 of the Movies by Minute podcast for the 1985 groundbreaking horror classic, The Return of the Living Dead. I'm your host, Troy, and once again, I'm being joined by the zombie-only fan,
Daniel Goodland.
All right. Holy crap! A live recording, and such a bold departure from the original source material! All right, so this minute is going to start off with Frank and Fred dropping a cadaver to the floor, and ends with a headless cadaver down an aisle.
Yeah.
So we're in the middle of this Three Stooges sequence and all that. After the cartoonish reaction that Bert had in the previous minute, and our other two completely ignored characters wrestle the thrashing about reanimated cadaver to the ground, knocking over in the process a bag of the styrofoam popcorn. So once the thrashing yellow man, played by Terrence M. Hullian, is subdued by Frank and Fred, Bert practically slides into the shot from his position where he had gotten up back from the pile of bagged skeletons. So he actually, if you look at it closely enough, when Clu Gallagher actually steps into the scene, his dress shoes do not grip, and he actually does slide for like a little second. All that. This, when we cut to this particular angle, note the missing popcorn.
Yep.
Yeah. So Bert now dances and twists around, very comically animated and all that sort of thing. And Frank and Freddy vocally struggle to keep the cadaver down. In a panic attempt to find something, the second he does, he dashes off camera from the opposite side from where he entered. The cadaver yelling over again.
Yeah, he's hungry.
He definitely is, yeah. So we then cut to Bert picking up the pickaxe, then quickly returns and stands at the head of the struggling cadaver. Once there, he commands Frank to keep it steady. Frank, seeing Bert reeling back with the axe in the air, he preps himself by turning his head away from what's about to happen. Freddy, all this time, just watching the corpse he has pinned beneath him. Cut to a classic horror monster angle up at Bert as he thrusts the axe downward. Then a profile shot of the yellow man's head and shoulders. His shoulders being held down by a hand each from Frank and Freddy. The return of the styrofoam popcorn is there. Then the sinking thud of the spike of the axe buries itself deep into the skull. A wet, viscous substance erupts from the impact. And a micro cut to a glimpse of the above shot as the corpse struggles more and being howling now. Its arms now held being on its back by Freddy and Frank. Back to Bert as he straightens back up. He's shocked look on his face as he surveys the results. A wide shot of them from down the aisle shows the cadaver still being held by Frank and Freddy.
And still struggling.
Yep, its legs flailing wildly. The spike axe through its skull. Frank crying in protest at the situation. The yellow man howling continues. Frank expresses his questioning the situation. Freddy points out where the pickaxe should be placed.
The brain!
Angrily, Bert informs him that that's where that he was on target.
I hit the fucking brain!
Still sobbing, Frank questions the next step.
Do something else, for goddammit,
After running his fingers through his hair, both hands this time, so it's really intense, the actual information that he's trying to jumpstart his brain with. It's the thing that Bert tends to do apparently to jog his brain.
Yep,
He runs
yep.
a hand through his
Has to fix
hair.
his hair.
Exactly, but now he's using two hands, so it's definitely
Thinking harder.
yeah, exactly. Bert, after another quick look around, comes up with a new plan. After informing Frank to hold him down, Bert goes down one of the aisles, hops over the fallen skeletons, and retrieves a hacksaw from a nearby shelf. Frank cries about giving up. The cadaver is still howling away, even though his face is pinned to the floor. Bert returns to the trio. Freddy curses when he sees the tool in Bert's hand. Bert kneels down next to Freddy's side of the cadaver. Frank questions the next step, but is stopped in mid-sentence when he sees Bert bring the saw into view.
What are you gonna do?
Sorry, when he brings the saw to the back of Yellowman's neck. And as he begins to saw, the sound of flesh being torn echoes. The vocals of the cadaver become wet and echoey. Frank cries out even more. Freddy shuts his eyes tight and turns away. Bert yells for Frank to relax.
Be a man, Frank, be a man.
Yeah, that was a good time to relax.
Exactly. The saw continues. Frank professes his desire to quit.
Son of a bitch!
The sawing continues. Freddy begs for it to end. And the sawing continues. Suddenly, the cadaver frees his hands from being held against its back and is able to place his hands on the ground next to his torso. He then pushes upwards, separating the last bit of flesh from that it's held his head to his neck. Frank and Freddy, in unison, scream in horror and let go, allowing the now headless cadaver to stand up. And like Bert did earlier, the body, without being held, turns left and right and stumbles a bit, banging into the coffee station behind them, and then finding its way down one of the aisles. Strategically shot shows the legs or only the torso of the startled, and as the startled men stumble about themselves to retrieve and subdue the yellow man.
Yeah, chaos ensues as they wrestle down the aisle.
Exactly.
With the headless guy who can't see what he's doing.
No, exactly. And so the yellow man, which is banging into the shelves, knocking items off of them, and is a glimpse of what is yet to come. So that's our minute.
Yeah,
so again, we don't have very much going on. We don't move very much, but we have a lot of knowledge of what's to come. Like
in Zombieverse, you just learned a heck of a lot of details.
Exactly.
These are unkillable zombies.
Yeah. As far as we're concerned right now, yeah, they're even when you separate the head from the body, it still moves around. I mean, we know that the dogs came back, the butterflies came back. Actually, you were the butterfly scene, weren't you? Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Scene. Everything's back. So even severed, it came back, and that's from a Zombieverse is a horrifying thing because you really can't stop them just by taking out the brain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, so over on the commentary track with director and writer Dan O'Bannon and production designer William Stout, Dan O'Bannon finishes talking what he was talking about from the previous minute, where in the cadaver book that inspired the Yellow Man's final look, the picture book that he had discovered that had all the cadavers in it and this yellow tint to most of the skin, so that's why they ended on the look of Yellow Man in there. So as the as in the movie when Bert brains the cadaver, Dan O'Bannon accents the hit with a boom and continues to point out that this is the gross out shot. William Stout points out that from this angle that he was using, Dan O'Bannon is the angle, when Bert uses the saw, there was no blade, and how the sound assisted the effect. He also points out that the earlier shot, you see the blade going against the body. Both men point out the profile shot of the cadaver as Clu Gallagher mimes sawing as the missing blade sequence. Dan then mentions that the lack of budget, you have to be ingenious and work with what you get. He then says that the headless torso bumps around, as the headless torso bumps around, that he wouldn't reveal how that was actually done, but does mention that the broken beakers on the ground are not actually glass, but plastic, as to not have him cut his feet, which I would say, have you ever stepped on broken plastic and all that sort of thing? There's a pretty good chance you're going to cut your
Pretty
feet and all
painful,
that.
pretty
Yeah,
painful.
exactly, exactly.
But did it actually break, or did it just fall and they used breaking sound effect to make it sound like broken glass? It seems more likely.
Yeah. So I'll have a little bit more about the thing that Dan O'Bannon didn't want to mention in this minute in the next minute, because it also comes up one more time in the commentary track of the next minute. So I'll extend on that. So, but I will point out what I showed you earlier in a few minutes about the design of the cadaver.
Yes. So in movie mistake mode, if you were really watching it, you would notice the shoulder positions from one scene to the next drastically change. So it looks kind of wrong sometimes. And you can tell when it goes from like a really moving body to suddenly it's stiller than it was before.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly.
They swapped out what they were working with.
Yeah, because they go from, just seeing, we brought it up. So when we have the full shot where we see the yellow cadaver lying there and the spike is through its head. So the actor Terrence M. Houlihan, he is actually laying down on with his head in a hole. So where they have James Cairn positioned in front of is the transition between the fake body and the rest of his body. So he's the flailing legs and all that.
Yeah.
Once the spike goes down through it, they move out the upper torso. So he's down in a hole. His torso with the spike through the head is like at a different position and all that sort of thing. So that's how they pull off that sequence and all that. And they use James Cairn as the block to hide the seam, technically.
Which is good.
Yeah,
and
exactly. Yeah.
Easy to do in that scene.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah.
Movie magic.
And also because it's not a close-up shot and all that, but like you said, when they do the close-up shot, you can tell that it's not a
suddenly there was
it's not a human body, it's a dummy body. Yeah, that they do a slight little rocking back and forth to make it look like it's moving and all that sort of thing. But again, the shots don't stay on one thing for too long.
The average person wouldn't even glance at that because it would pass by so fast.
Exactly. And this whole entire sequence is a series of micro edits and all that sort of, which is different from what we've seen previous to it, because previous to this, we have long drawn out scenes that are...
These are really quick. So in 1 minute, you do like, what was it, 7 changes there?
Easily. Yeah. Just in that sequence alone from, So
in 1 minute, you flip like scenes, just zap, 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 zap.
Yeah. All right. So according to the script, which is a story and screenplay by Dan O'Bannon, this is the revision from October 1983. And again, based on the story and screenplay by John Russo, Rudy Rickey, and Russell Steiner. Now, this particular sequence is very short in the script form. Again, we're dealing minute by minute. Sometimes they go for a little more detail, but this one, I'm just going to read our description that we have in here. So this particular sequence starts in the middle of this paragraph. So I'll just back up to where Frank and Freddy finally have the cadaver subdued, with both its arms twisted up behind its back. But it is snarling and snapping at them. It is just a hideous looking with yellow jaundiced skin and dry eyeballs. Bert: hold its shoulders to the floor. Frank and Freddy pin the thing's shoulders down. Bert takes careful aim and swings the axe. Pow! Crunch! The pickaxe end of the axe goes through the cadaver's skull, nailing it to the floor. It lets out a tremendous howl and begins to struggle. No blood flows, just formaldehyde. Frank and Freddy hang on. The axe is stuck right into the floor, through its head, and it squirms like a butterfly on a pin, screaming. Bert runs over to the medical supplies and comes back carrying a bone saw. Looks like a hacksaw. Bert: hold on tight. Bert gets down on his knees next to them and starts sawing off the struggling thing's head. while they hold its arms. As the body separates from the head, two things happen. One, the screaming stops, and two, the body jumps up, knocking Frank and Freddy loose and runs off, leaving the head pinned to the floor by the axe. The body takes off running, croaking like a headless chicken in the barnyard. It immediately smashes into something and falls down, but he gets back up and starts running again blindly. The three of them take off after and tackle it. They all jump on it to hold it down. Now, obviously, this minute stopped before that particular thing, but I thought I'd just throw that in to show where we end up. So yeah, so it's nice to see that the banter isn't in the script.
Yeah.
There's no like for God damn it to hell's sake sort of thing and all that sort of thing.
Yeah.
There's just the one or two things. And apparently, according to the script, Bert seems to have a little more control over the situation because he just automatically like, I'm just gonna get the bone saw and you hack his head off and all that sort of thing.
Takes charge. And
Exactly.
sees happen.
Exactly. Doesn't seem nearly as panicked as he is in the. I mean, obviously, we know Frank is way beyond panic. He's gone beyond whatever beyond panic is. That's what Frank is currently dealing with.
Yeah, he's losing control.
Yeah. But yeah, so the script version of Bert seems to be a little more, more.
The banter is just all free form as they go. I wonder,
Well, again, it goes with the fact that again they had 2 weeks working together and all that sort of thing to work through stuff. Because, and again, I mentioned again because the writer himself is the director, so there's a lot more. It's easier to be able to alter stuff, adapt on the floor and all that sort of thing. Again, the one thing is before they started filming the movie is like pretty much the day that they hired Clu Gallagher for that role. So while Clu Gallagher didn't have the option to rehearse with everyone else, he seems to have slipped right into the role and all that. So again, being the type of actor that he is, having the career that he has had, or at the time he easily fits into the role, which is again a surprise for Dan O'Bannon to have discovered that as well. So yeah. Now, when we go to the work print comparison, this minute being minute 24, so 23 to 24, minute 23 to 24. The work print is a little bit ahead. This particular sequence actually is a couple more seconds longer, so this is where we get a little more things. So this particular minute is coalesce with 25:44 to 26:48. Just a little bit, but little bits and pieces is how the work print becomes like 15, 20 minutes longer than the final film. So now I'm doing this movie as we go minute by minute through it to compare, but I did jump to the end to find out that the movie ends. So there's no credits, obviously, in a work print. You don't need to put credits. Obviously, you don't have the credits completely all compiled, but when you do a work print and all that sort of thing. So the fact that the 3 minutes at the end of the movie are missing means that the work print is actually even longer than the final film because the 3 minutes of credits are included in the full 91-minute movie, whereas the work print is now like a 20-minute longer movie. So seeing we're only like a minute, 2 minutes behind, I'm wondering where all this extra footage is going to be coming, and I really can't wait to discover it.
It's
and
not here yet.
Yeah, exactly. And we haven't gotten into it, and I'm just wondering, like, we're going to have like a full missing scene or something like that?
Because Troy hasn't been watching he hasn't watched the
work print.
So he has it's some fun stuff coming for sure.
And this is also a kind of a neat thing to have discovered this extra stuff. Like being a fan of this movie for as long as I have been, it's kind of neat to discover new things. And I thought as soon as Dan here, who's the one that pointed this out to me, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to do that. And then I'm as soon as I was about to sit down to watch it, I'm like, no, you know what? I'm going to discover this minute by minute, to make it new. And it's really cool to see how everything works. Also because you get to see how stuff was actually done. Especially this is the day of film, no digital, no whatever and all that sort of thing. So you
So
were
Yellow Man, you get to see him in his true form, so to speak.
exactly, exactly. There's no Foley and all that sort of thing, so you get to hear on-set sound. You get to hear like what the actual voices sounded like and all that sort of thing, because there's a lot of lines in here that are ADR'd and whatnot. But it's just a fascinating way to figure out, and it's also it's a different movie without like the music, like all the punk scenes where like all the punk music is playing and all that sort of thing. It's weird not knowing what should be playing here, and
Yeah.
it's silence.
It'd be like watching any of the shows when you learn that when they're dancing in those big dance scenes and stuff, like
Yeah,
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
yeah,
That's
exactly.
all the
There was
times they were playing music. There was
there was
normally
no
no music at all.
yeah,
People
exactly.
just dancing to air, like,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. So in this particular work print, it pretty much flows through the whole entire thing, but at the time that they had compiled this together, it was quite obviously that a lot of the effect shots were not done. They have a cut to a couple of like blank screens to like be as a hey, this is where this effect goes and all
placeholders.
that. Yeah, placeholders and all that sort of thing. So like we don't actually do a close-up shot of the spike going through the head, right? So we have just Clu Gallagher swinging the axe and down, and then we cut to the full shot of the four characters in this scene and all that, and the legs struggling and all that. We don't show the close-up cut of the saw going through the back of the neck, but we do the profile shot of the fake the missing blade shot and all that sort of thing. We don't see the cadaver pushing himself up off the ground and all that, and the head tearing away from the neck as he stands and all that. That's missing, but there are little placeholders and all that. The sequence before we there's also insert shots are missing too. There's a couple of insert shots. There's a close up of both of James Karen and of Tom Matthews, and Tom Matthews close-ups are not in the work print. The ones of James Karen are, but so Tom Matthews are missing, so they obviously just chop him in and throw in like close-up shots, which are obviously shot differently. Because again, those shots of Tom Matthews are just his face. It's not like you see anyone around them, so they could just like quickly pick up and all that sort of thing. Because costumes don't change and all that with these characters, because this all happens in such a short time and all that. So yeah, so it's kind of interesting. Again, you get a lot of feel for how things were on the set, and that's one of the great things about.
Was this one of those one and done shots?
As far as I can tell, it looks like the different camera angles, because there's the one of looking up at Clu Gallagher with the pickaxe coming down to the camera. But it doesn't look like it was one continuous shot. But the shot from down the aisle looks like they did a lot of that sequence all at once. And then obviously once they saw through, the camera comes in closer and all that. So it's a different shot. It's instead of being down the aisle. But all the shots that are from that angle look to be all there. They just
because I always wonder how many takes and stuff like that.
Yeah, exactly. And well, I mean,
because there was no actual scripting of what they were going to say. I'm wondering, like, I could imagine funny things occurring when they're trying to be serious and something goes wrong.
Yeah. Now, I'm pretty sure it probably would have been a lighter sort of atmosphere set and all that, just because of the subject matter and all that sort of thing. But I'm pretty sure that because of their budget, they couldn't afford to like goof around and all that sort of thing. So
I'm not saying they intentionally would.
No, I mean,
like sometimes things happen.
It's
pretty funny
for sure. I'd love to find if there was some sort of blooper reel or something from that. That would be
incredible.
Yeah. I might actually do a little research on that there, because you never know. Because I didn't know about the More Brains, the Return of the Living Dead documentary that's about like I guess 10 years old now at this point, where they brought back the still living members and cast and crew to reminisce about the movie and all that until recently, which was kind of neat.
Well, it's like I never saw that shot of the Yellow Man as Green Man.
Oh right, yes, yeah. So in doing research for this particular minute, I came across and he has a fantastic online blog. William Stout has an online presence. I'll put a link in the show notes to get to this particular sequence of the movie that he has on his blog, where he goes into detail about a little bit of detail about he has his original production drawings of what Yellow Man was supposed to look like, and there's a bunch of storyboards that he actually did as well. He also has a picture on in this one whole entire blog post where they have the original look of what Yellow Man, the headless Yellow Man, mind you, is to look like, and it looks like a yellow trash bag stretched over some sort of and again, it's an actor that's wearing like a cheap Halloween headless horseman sort of thing. So it's an
Yes.
extra long body.
So he's taller than before.
Yeah. But they have eye holes punched out in the center of where his chest would be, where the actor's head is currently. And yeah, so
So
William.
I think the logic would be is they would film mostly to the back of him because he's going to pick himself off the floor.
Yeah, exactly.
and spread
But it
around.
just, yeah. So, and when William Stout
Taller than when he went down.
Exactly. So when William Stout had seen what they came up with, he definitely told them to like, no, go do that again. And of course, we ended up getting what we have in the movie, which is more of a sculpted sort of puppet tearing sort of thing, which I'll go into in the next minute because it gets brought up, and that's what we got for that. All right. So, anything else you want to talk about for this particular minute there, Mr. Dan? Because I think we pretty much coming up to a close.
So one of the things was like I always wanted the skeletons to kind of have a bit more movement to them for some reason, like because they're in the bag on the side, and you're like,
Yeah.
oh, if it just a little bit of movement or something else in the scene, because they had so much in the beginning with the dogs and all the other things moving, and then you do this scene where they're looking down the aisle and the only thing is moving is them, and I imagine that's so they wouldn't steal from the scene, but it would have made it just that much more gripping to me because everything was animated that was dead.
Yeah.
And this one, it felt like everything else passed away. And
Well, okay. So, I mean, two things come into mind with that. To begin with, there's no flesh moving the skeleton around. There's no way. I mean, juxtaposition, we got the "Do you want to party?" skeleton coming out of the ground in the upcoming sequence. Like everyone's seen that scene. It's part of it. It gets cued with the "Do you want to party?" as a skeleton just
part of their advertising
comes exactly. It just comes out. That was actually rejected. Originally, they rejected that. They didn't think for that reason. The guy said, it's just a skeleton. Why would it? And all that sort of thing. And then they just thought it was a gag sort of thing that they thought it would be kind of neat to do and all that. And then after editing, they decided, okay, let's put this sequence in. So
and I get it because the skeletons were in the bags were
exactly
jointed with metal or something.
Yeah, exactly. But no, that
was the movement I wanted. Was
that would have actually
extra.
been that would have been really kind of neat to do that. And it's not like, and again, you yourself have mentioned it that the upcoming sequence with the quote unquote weasels, the rabid weasels, how they achieved that effect, which is. If anyone doesn't already know, I'll talk about it when I get to that sequence in a couple of weeks, a couple of minutes or a couple of weeks, depending on how you want to do this. The once the cadaver is chopped up and they're trying to dispose of the body parts, they have these garbage bags. Well, yeah, I'm pretty sure that it's not much of a spoiler. I mean, why would you be listening to a Movies by Minute podcast about a movie that you haven't seen? You're going to be expecting spoilers. What you're expecting is to have more insight into it and all that. But anyways, the bags are actually those wind-up monkeys that have the symbols that crash. But what they did is they removed the symbols, and so all they do is they have this movement, which is brilliant to see. That I would love to find some sort of behind-the-scenes pictures of them like wrapping up the bags and all that sort of thing. But that's what they basically went with, was these. I don't even know what to call them, but the symbol monkeys that you
Clapping
wind them up,
monkeys,
the
if you
clapping
will.
monkeys and all that sort of thing. Yeah, so they just remove the symbols, and so they wind them up, put them in these bags, and when you see that stack of zombie parts, it's actually toy monkeys that aren't making it. Well, I'm
Which
pretty
makes
sure
you
they're.
want some, so you throw them in a bag to watch it happen and go,
Yeah, exactly, exactly. I'm like, wow, that sounds like great. Again, I can't wait to see the work print of that because if any noise and all that
I
would
do feel
probably
we should Swede this movie.
that would actually be kind of neat. Yeah.
Just a really
Just
fast
or
20-minute
very
Swede or something.
yeah, that'd be kind of cool. That'd be maybe a project to work on after a while and all that. Yeah. Well, again, this project is going on for another year and a bit, so we'll see what happens when we get around there.
Because we can steal right from the behind the scenes that you've been referring to with the trash bag.
Yeah, that's true too. Yeah.
Headless guy with the eye holes. We could totally do that scene.
If we do something like that, you know what? How about we work on maybe sweeting scenes and then once we're finished, put it all together. That might be something to be worth
Oh, I'm down for anything.
Yeah,
Really.
paying a little extra for sort of thing. So hey, we might actually have something to put onto a Patreon if we start up something like that. But anyways, that's in the future. Anything else for this particular minute?
For this minute, nah, this was a classic minute.
Mm-hmm.
It fits all the bills. I just love the usage of everything they had to hide how they did the body and
Yeah,
stuff.
again, brilliantly
'Cause
done. Yeah.
You know, he had his head ducked down for the first flash of it, but it was
Yeah.
still fast. And then they ducks behind the next aisle where everything goes chaos, but they don't worry about his head because they only like show from the chest down. And
Yeah,
it
exactly.
was
Yeah.
such great use of the space, making it wild and crazy, and
Mm-hmm.
and the headless zombie, like it was just wild to me. Like,
Yeah.
It stuck with me forever. I love
Exactly. Yeah, that the sound of the gurgling voice as they're cutting through that neck
and the cutting
always
sound, which you miss so much in the other cut.
Yeah, in the work print.
The work
yeah,
print,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
the word.
Yeah.
When they're doing the sound without the sound effect, it's like this is so cheap.
Mhm,
And then
mhm.
you add the sound, like it made it more intense.
Yeah, this is again another thing about the Foley is it really fills out these scenes and all that. I mean, without the extra sounds and all that, it just I mean, obviously you don't do it on set for stuff that, and that's the reason why you have Foley effects and all that to flesh out, so to
Yeah.
speak, the sequences and all that. And this particular sequence is a great example of how the sound just makes it more visceral than it actually is and all that. And it just makes for a fun watch, especially, I mean.
Oh, and if you do enjoy this, note the nice clean cut. He did a good job.
Well, if it's a sharp enough saw and you're being, yeah. Well, no, that's a hacksaw. He's using a hacksaw.
That's the joke, though.
Yeah,
'cause
yeah.
The script, it's a
The
bone
6
saw.
bone saw, yeah. Just a little bit of a heads up. When they go to dismember it in a minute or two, he actually does call for a bone saw. So obviously, a medical supply warehouse, of course, they would have a bone saw on hand. He just happened to grab the hacksaw first. So
toolbox brush.
Yeah. More than likely, they actually didn't have an actual bone saw because you don't actually see them using a bone saw, but he obviously would have a bone saw. They just didn't have a
And
bone
the average
saw.
person wouldn't even know what that
What a
looks
bone
like
saw would
anyways.
actually look like. Yeah, exactly. So
Not until the 2000s when they really started pushing those medical dramas.
exactly. Yeah, that's true too. That's true too. All right. So on that particular minute, on that particular note, we're going to end this particular minute. Thank you, Dan, for joining me for this live in-person recording. Hopefully, we
Always
can
good.
get this
Always good.
done a little, few more times and all that. Unfortunately, a lot of my guest hosts are a little further away than just a quick 20-minute drive. So
Yeah, some of them a lot further.
yes, a lot further. Some of them not even in this country. So thank you, audience, for joining in. Again, I keep mentioning it every week. Very thankful for everyone. Numbers every single week just creep up 1 or 2 extra from the previous week and all that sort of thing. So it's really fun to see. If you have any questions about this particular minute or anything we've talked about in the past or anything you want to talk about in the future, be sure to reach out to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. And we'll carry on the conversation there, or maybe eventually roll it into a future episode. And I'll just have to say once again, thank you, Dan, for joining me.
My good. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah, it was it? And until next time, see you next Wednesday. You've just been listening to a Planet Geek production of Do You Want to Party? A Movies by Minute podcast of the 1985 The Return of the Living Dead. Please be sure to subscribe, download, comment, share, rate, and review. Be sure to follow us on our social media platforms: Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Tumblr, or Letterboxd. Search for Planet Geek Productions. X, former Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky, search for Planet Geek Pod. Or send us an email to planetgeekpod@gmail.com. Our closing music is provided by Night Chill. See the show notes for more details. Once again, thanks for tuning in, and farewell, fiends.